Welcome to this new episode of the Aligned Founder podcast, this time from Bali. This time a little bit different. Usually, as you know, we do a breathwork session before the podcast with our guests. We make an exception today because this man has done more breathwork sessions than all of us combined. And without Edward Dangerfield, this podcast wouldn't exist. Our company wouldn't exist because he's my and Pete's mentor and teacher and very super interesting man. And when I talk about him, when people ask me, I often struggle to describe him because I do sometimes say he's some kind of wizard or magician. And because what he does is not just facilitating breathwork, it's more than that. I feel like you have such a deep understanding of human beings, of the nervous system, the human psyche, the body, just very holistic, and you see every detail. So maybe you can just say a little bit about how did you acquire all of the skills and how do you look at humans?
Yeah, I love this. Thank you, bro. Well, just firstly, really touched by the intro. It's super sweet, and thank you for seeing me in that way and honoring me. And I'm stoked to be here. Yeah, I think honestly, it comes out of survival strategies and difficulty in my own childhood. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my parents divorced when I was really young, and it led me to be raised by my mother, and a lot of compassion for her. My brother and I, my brother's 2 years older than I am, two very vibrant, slightly eccentric, different boys. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my mum attempting to raise us on her own, which would have been incredibly difficult. And ultimately, as I'm a father now, as I'm a parent, I recognize it's actually quite a difficult role. And the truth is some people just really aren't that well cut out for it. And so, I've been really confronted by, the way that I want to parent and my own limitations. It's been very motivational. But what I've come to realize is, my childhood was difficult, right? And because of that, I developed a lot of different survival mechanisms and strategies and coping strategies and mechanisms. And now on the other side of that, they're gifts that I get to share with the world, that I also get to monetize effectively and live from a space of vibrancy. But ultimately, as you kind of mentioned, this wizard quality, right? It's a little bit weird, right? Mm-hmm. And you kindly said interesting, but it's fucking weird, right? And so what's really there is, over the course of my childhood and probably some genetic disposition, there were a couple of things that came together that gave me what I've now come to realize is an outlying ability. Yeah. And it's a skill set where I'm able to pick up a lot of these subtleties and nuances, both in facial cues, expression, movement, body, touch, language, all of these things, right? And combine them very rapidly through neurodivergence, through the way my brain operates, to make summations or hypotheses that I can then prove are either accurate or inaccurate and iterate really fast. And that's just a skill set that I developed quickly from my childhood that's probably quite innate as well, that enables me to do the work that I do now. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, that was been the next question. I found it super interesting when in the last training Skill Up you talked about, because sometimes people think, okay, I'm going to do a breathwork session, I'm going to come in, I have a certain breathing rhythm and that's it. But you describing, you watch the person walk in, how do they walk, how do they carry themselves, what are the things they say, what physical cues do you see, and then how you decide how you structure the session. Sometimes you talk to somebody for half an hour, sometimes you told me, I came in, I was expecting us to talk, and you just, okay, let's go. And you just put me on the on the mattress, and I basically start to breathe. And
I remember the song I used for that session as well. Right?
Yeah.
It was straight in to very emotive, evocative. Yeah.
And with that, what I'm interested in is that because we are mostly in Berlin, we're in Germany, and the breathwork is a hype topic now. It's so many different modalities, methods on YouTube, and people are offering it. And I sometimes notice when somebody comes to me and said, "Oh yeah, I've done breathwork before." I have this desire of telling them, well, but what we do is different. What I learned from you is different. Yeah. So how would you, in an easy way, explain what FBR, that is the name of the technique, what that is compared to normal breathwork that people would relate to?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great and important topic, right? I think FBR, Facilitated Breath Repatterning, is built around, firstly, analysis, right? So it's an observational analysis of the breathing mechanics, foundational breathing mechanics. So what are the muscles that are being used to engage in breath? How is the inhale moving into the body, and how is the exhale leaving the body, right? And that's where we start as an FBR practitioner, is the ability to effectively, witness, categorize, and then interpret the breath and how it's moving. And what we're looking for is patterns of good functionality, or poor functionality, be it over-functioning, rigidity, pushing, too much exertion or effort in one muscle group, too much tightness in another. So we're taking a very holistic assessment of the fundamental mechanics of breathing.
Yeah.
Breathing's behavioral. And so we're then taking those sort of behaviors and we're making some sort of summary around how is it that the person usually deals with life and or then like different stresses, be it like more activation of volume or relaxation. How is it that their breathing rhythm is able to meet that? And then from that sort of inquiry, which happens in about a second, we make an adjustment using a verbal cue, a direct verbal cue, a change to the music, a change to the space, or some hand facilitation. We might be encouraging a muscle to soften. We might be encouraging another muscle to fire. So we're very analytical, and then at the same time, we're giving a lot of space. So then we're like stepping back and being like, what just happened? How did the system respond? Yeah. So the premise is it's a call and response between someone that's very effectively trained in the assessment and movement of breath and the muscles of breathing, and then an intervention to create some change. And ultimately, it's not about like breathing one way. It's about getting people into range and dynamism. The training is, as you know, very deep and subtle and intense and complete.
Yeah, super interesting. I think that already sounds way more like technical and deep and scientific than most people would even think about, because often it's about people saw videos of people crying or like screaming. There's some certain people who use that on social media, and it's like, this is like the thing. I'm selling breathwork basically as this emotional release, which is one part of it. I always say like this learning about oneself, getting clarity, that's a big thing. But then it's also, for me in the start, especially my physical health, my sleep, my breath mechanics, as you just explained in the start, I was using way too many muscles that I didn't need to use to breathe, and that actually affected my sleep and my energy levels and all of that. So it's like really different ways we look at it. But then also, and circling back to things I'm confronted with in Berlin, is like, especially many of the guys who are overachievers, as we like to call them, like really successful in business, they know something might be off, but they are skeptical to go there because they think it's maybe too spiritual or too esoteric for them. So just in general interested, how do you define spirituality and how spiritual is what you do?
Oh, this is a great question. That's confronting. I love it. Yeah, I think, living in Bali and having like symmetrical leg tattoos as an example, right? It's pretty easy to put me into a certain box or category. To very directly answer your question, I spent a lot of time with native Canadians. I had one particular mentor, Vern, who taught me a lot about the interrelationship of
so that's
energy.
Indigenous people in Canada.
Yeah. And so, some of the practices would be things like sweat lodge. So sweat lodge ceremony, sitting in circle, tending to a fire, like how to tend to a fire. How to really listen, like really, really deeply. And then connection to nature, observation of animals, what animals mean. Some of the spirits of the animals, so the way that they move and what that shows us, like the difference between like the bear as an example and how it moves versus like the raccoon and the style of energy that they carry. And so then if you're visited by one of those in a vision, what it's signaling to you in your life, right? But ultimately, like what this comes down to is the movement of energy into form and form into energy or matter. So it's E equals MC squared, right? In a different way of looking at it. And so, for me, my time with the native Canadians led me to understand a little bit more about the interconnected nature of life. And in the way that it's taught there, it's like very open. I wouldn't say it's dogmatic. I would say it's like accessible, and it's based on laws of physics. And I like that to be like something that I contemplate when I talk to Onyx, to my son, when I talk to him about the way that water moves in Bali. Like, it's a spiritual practice to explore how the rain moves down into the subat, into the rice farmer, to to the warong where we have lunch, and then how we poop, and it goes down into the trees, and then it turns into a mango, and then I harvest it and I feed it to him, right? So I talk about the way that the rain becomes the mango and all of the interconnections. For me, that's spirituality, right? Yeah. And so then we start to explore like the impact of that on those things. So then, when we bring that to this idea of breath, for me, this idea that we're in relationship to the breath is sort of the spiritual practice, or is the way that we explore spirituality, is how is breath moving into me and how is it leaving me? And if breath is spirit, or is like a way that we communicate, is life force energy, how is that moving through me? That gives me an understanding of my own spiritual health. So I don't, and with that I'm very sort of wary to speak a lot about it, right? Because I want people to have their own experience.
I love that. I remember when I came to Bali to do the breathwork training, it was a pretty spontaneous decision, and I was still running my party company, and I was going to the gym, and I had this long blonde hair, man bun, and I felt pretty out of place, and I was worried, basically, that I'm not spiritual enough. Because there were some people in our group that were like what I would consider super spiritual and talking in that way as well. And when we even had the introduction round, I was looking at myself before as a confident person in my environment, but I was now in this new environment where I really had to reveal parts of me that I didn't before, and I was super nervous. I remember that moment when there was 3 people before me talking in like this big spiritual language, and you actually said to them, hey, slow it down a little bit. What do you mean by that? And then they got a little bit maybe triggered first because they thought this part isn't welcome, but then you just said, hey, no, I am actually very woohoo as well. But we need to learn first to communicate with people in a grounded way so that they can even receive what we do. And then they will make their own experience in breath and in whatever, then they like start to be more open to it anyways. But that really gave me this feeling of, okay, I'm safe here. And I remember that so much because I think that really serves me now talking to some of the guys in Germany that are not ready to be met in highly spiritual language, but then like slowly just opening up to it more and more.
I love that.
So that was really good experience, and I love that you have like both elements and you also see these elements in people and let them be there.
It's nice, right? I mean, there can be relief when we realize, what we're really exploring is, what are the interconnections between like myself and the land, the water, my breath, my community. Like that for me is the spiritual practice, is to explore those relationships. And we can dress it up with language that falls into certain areas of appropriation and or falls into like more spiritual cliquey things. But ultimately I'm more interested in just like the rawness of it, of like how do people breathe and live.
You touched quickly on something I was going to bring up anyways. Even though I'm not a father, one of the things that touched me the most when you were talking about some of the stories from everyday life with your son and how you raise him, and thinking more about it now after the past 2 years working deeply with people, getting a profound understanding how impactful our childhood is and how our parents, what they teach us about love and how they make us feel safe or unsafe. I noticed, wow, this work that we're doing right now with our clients makes them also better parents because they understand the impact of what their childhood had on them. And I think you have years and years of extensive experience with that, and now you're a dad yourself, plus you have the awareness of the nervous system and stuff, and I just loved the stories, and I remember I told you should write a book on this one day. So I would love to hear from you just a few words on how all of this knowledge that you've gathered impacts your role as a father, and maybe you even have a little cool story that you can tell how you approached a certain situation with your son.
Thank you so much. It's been confronting, and very liberating at the same time to be a parent. Also to acknowledge that when my parents divorced, my dad wasn't around, and I wanted to be there for my son. It was very, very important. And so I went through a separation as well when my son was really young. There was just an acknowledgement that was a lack of compatibility in beliefs and values around the ways that we wanted to parent. And that was not going to be reconciled. And so that was like firstly a very, very difficult decision for me. And I had to stare down one of my greatest fears that was my own echo of my own childhood of losing my father. And so I had to be willing to create distance, but then at the same time do things differently, which was stay in connection. So I've stayed in connection with my son. And then one of the things that I'm very acutely aware of is overcorrection, which is then like, now I need to see him every day, which isn't healthy for him, or anyone, right? For not healthy for me either, to that degree, right? So I had to find this middle way. And I suppose it's the middle way that I love, right? Which is acknowledging that like most human behavior, when it's kind of in the middle, is healthy. And when it's on either end of the spectrum, it becomes pathological. Yeah, generosity is a great example, right? I want to be generous, I don't want to be over generous, and I don't want to be under generous. On either end of the spectrum, it becomes a bit, unhealthy, either for me or people around me, or I'm weaponizing it or using it to meet my needs in some way, right? So with my son, I've just been really challenged to find the middle way around contact with him, scheduling and how much to spend time with him. And then I think also like one of probably the greatest lessons is the wisdom that's already present in humans, right? He's super smart. And what I've really been encouraged to do based on my own education, like my own education was very much like, here's the textbook, remember it, this is what you need to learn, this is the way that we think, right? And as you know, having studied with me, I throw that out, right? We have no textbook, and I love emergence. I love what is alive as the stimulus for teaching in the group. And what it requires is to change the way that we think and move into a way of like spacious thinking. And in this spacious thinking, instead of someone giving us the answer, we go into an inquiry to find it ourselves through our own lived experience. And so that's been the way that I've wanted to parent, is creating a lot of space for Onyx to explore and figure things out. In a lot of different ways. And that's been the way that I've wanted to parent, is to allow emergent learning. With that, I've made mistakes, right? Where I've given him too much space, and then, as an example, like he's fallen over, and then cut himself, right? And it's just like, there's such a fine, sometimes it's just a paper thin line between like him learning to swim and him drowning, So I think like what it's required is this constant tending to how much do I expose him to threat and how much do I keep him safe? And we learn on the edge. And one thing that, you experience that you shared in the way that I teach is I want it to be safe, but not too safe. And this is where, there's an opportunity for growth.
100%. It was definitely an edge being that container, but also the biggest growth that I've ever experienced. I remember I came with the intention of, becoming a facilitator and being able to use it as my job, but it was just as big of a time that helped me grow and understand so much about myself. And that wasn't even the intention, but that actually leads me, that's another question I want to ask you. My friend asked me that today, and I get confronted with this question a lot in work. It's like, people ask me, how do you deal with hearing all of the trauma and all of the difficult stories from people that you work with? They come to you and they're telling you all the problems. Isn't that heavy? And sometimes the clients myself tell me, oh, isn't that too much? And I remember the very first session I witnessed you doing on somebody, and it was very intense, and it overwhelmed me as well. But then going through this training process, going into my own deepest fears and challenges that I never even knew were there, but then also coming out on the other side feeling great, learning, okay, I'm not going to die if I'm going to feel that pain, but I actually get stronger from it, and actually this was serving me right now versus like, oh, somebody's crying and is sad and I'm sad for them. I'm looking at it now as, oh, that's great, that's what they need right now, and I don't frame it as something negative anymore. So my question to you, do you do anything to protect your energy, or is that something that gives you energy, facilitating, or are there days when you think, that was heavy?
Thank you, bro. I love this. I think what you speak to in your own training is this idea of exposure therapy. When someone approaches you or I, and or they watch the work, right? and this is, we can get back onto like the exposure of Instagram and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you videoed like one of my sessions and put it online, like people would be like shocked, right? Genuinely shocked. You're like, what? Like this person's going through a lot of pain, and sometimes if the client reviewed it afterwards, they'd be like, "Did I go through that?" And it's incredible how much pain we can go into when we're supported effectively, right? Yeah. And that's what creates deeper reclamation, completion of the story or cycle, and then like an ability to have more resilience and capacity. And yeah, one of the reasons I'm resistant to put out the work, like actually in the way that we work online, is because people would be so shocked. When you come in and you watch me work the first time, like you said, there's overwhelm, right? Yeah. And then genuinely over time, it's this gradual process of exposure therapy where you just become more comfortable in other people's discomfort. Yes. Yeah. And so then, you know, most people that come and train with us, they become really comfortable in the heaviness, right? And then they're just like, oh yeah. And then, yeah, there's this sort of opportunity for us to acknowledge that it's actually really meaningful. Yeah. And it's both heavy and meaningful at the same time, right? Because we can also see the liberation. And so I think it creates this sort of like dissolution of like, or an integration of the polarity, right? Yeah. It's where like, you see the pain and the depth of the pain, and then at the same time, you see how much liberation comes on the other side. And because of witnessing that, there's a willingness to take clients into pain again, right? Yeah. And hold them well, right? And enough, but not too much. Again, right? That middle way of like exposing them to their own discomfort, right? And then we just keep building their own capacity and their resilience for pain and discomfort such that they have like great resilience and ability to be with it all. Yeah. Yeah. So I think, yeah, to answer your question, it's been a really gradual process for me. I think I built huge capacity. I had a huge work rate. And then I got to the point where I was like, I can hold this, and I no longer want to. And now I work with a lot more ease in my life. Yeah. When we work with founders or like very gifted healers, we find that they have a huge capacity for holding things, but usually they don't actually want to. They can, but they don't want to, right? Yeah. And a lot of that's coming out of childhood, where it's like, you know, we've grown up with maybe a parent who's incompetent, so we've developed huge competency, be it in a financial matter, be it in emotional regulation, the ability to connect, whatever that might be. But when we look at one of our parents and we see maybe their fragility or weakness, it builds strength within us, right? And that's great until we keep attempting to mitigate that from our childhood to the point where it's just not serving us anymore. And that's, I think, what a lot of founders will come to you with. Yeah.
And one particular thing with founders is they say, I feel numb, I feel flat. Like I have everything I always thought I want. Like on the outside, everything looks great, but I feel numb on the inside. How would you describe what happens there? Why is that? And how does breath work help?
It's great. Yeah, look, we're rewarded in our society and culture for certain things, depending especially on gender roles, right? Men usually, strength, protection, providing big capacity and resilience. Women oftentimes for nurturance, sometimes sensitivity to like a point where it's no longer healthy, right? Beauty, right? And sexual energy, right? And so, you know, we could say that masculinity and femininity are rewarded, those things within each one of us, right? And so, we create these feedback loops in our society where we're praised for those things. Productivity, right? By its very nature is rewarding, both in finances and or in what other people look at us and you know, like, wow, look at everything that these people have achieved, right? So achievement's praised, and for good reason, like it's great, right? But the problem is when the achievement starts to come at the cost, right? And what that means is we're revving really high, we're using a lot of adrenaline or caffeine or high energetic states. Maybe some of our like hypervigilance or ADHD parts or creative parts are really online. And when they dominate ways of thinking and being, and that's the only thing that's present, we lose touch with play, with creativity, with our heart, with feeling ourselves. The mechanism for that is adrenaline and cortisol. So too much adrenaline leads to, you know, attempts for cortisol to soften that back, and we get into these adrenal cortical like cycles. And what that leads to over time is a desensitization of the nervous system such that we don't actually have interoception. We can't feel our internal landscape. And that's a numbness. We've achieved incredible things, and then we're numb. And
what do you do with such a person when they come into you and you see that pattern? And he's like, I just want to enjoy my life again.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I
How
do
do
is
you-
I relate. Like, I get it. I'm like, fuck, I've been there. You know, it's like, yep, I know this one. And then, like, you know, it's nice, like, for the reflection that I don't live there anymore. You know, I don't live from my own patterns of needing to, fix, save, change, right? It's just like, I'm genuinely, like, enjoying my life a lot. And then I think what I do is, just start the inquiry into, like, what are the root causes of the behavior and or the emotions that are driving this? Like, what is it that this person is genuinely, like, afraid of feeling within themselves? And or what are some of the unconscious beliefs that are limiting the way that they will then behave or feel? And then how are they being rewarded for the patterns that are keeping them stuck? So we kind of ascertain that first, and then that could be a great coaching session. You know, you get a lot done right there. And I'm very unsatisfied at that point in the session. That's when we shift over to the table and we start working with the breath. And then, those behaviors and strategies are evident to me in the movement of the diaphragm and the intercostal muscles, the intensity with which breath is moving in and out of the body, maybe the stability of the hips, maybe the openness of the heart, the blockage in the throat space. We start to, like, critically assess those things. And then, make some adjustments, start to show the nervous system there's a different way, of being and feeling. And then the beliefs that are anchored and rooted in behavior in the feeling space, the client starts to feel, new possibilities actually tangibly in their body in that moment. They're like, oh fuck, like this is me working too hard again. I might even speak to it. Here's your over efforter coming in, and that part does great. Let's just soften that back right now. And then what happens is they get in touch with all of these parts of themselves or aspects that have been denied, unwelcomed, or unsafe, not rewarded. And they start to reclaim those. And they still have the effort, they still have the achievement, they still can do great things, but they're just more in touch with their body.
That's the next thing. It's so funny. We had a couple of people coming in, doing a session, having an unbelievably emotional, mind-blowing session, coming out like, oh my God, I didn't think this was possible with just breathing. Wow, so much clarity, so many, also confronting clarity sometimes. Like thoughts,
sure.
oh, there's this thing I have been avoiding for so long. I should pick up the phone, call my dad, who I haven't talked to in 10 years about this.
Incredible.
But sometimes these people completely ghost afterwards. Like, I would call Pete and say, wow, this session was great. For sure he's going to continue and, he's going to come on the retreat and whatever. I just never hear from them again. What do you think happens?
Look, I love your honesty and openness, and of course I've experienced the same thing many times, right? Like, as we go through the practice, right, we recognize that the techniques that we have are very powerful and effective, right? And as a practitioner, we're making good, educated assumptions on how to guide someone. Humans, like, denial is a really effective defense mechanism, right? We love denial, and we're good at denying things that are too difficult for us to confront. It keeps us safe from actually having to stare down the reality and then create the change, right? When the change is more difficult. And so sometimes, when we've got potent tools and we can show people, like, where they're causing difficulty in their own lives, they're sometimes not ready to actually stare that down. And one of the things that I've noticed over time is that's not mine, right? To change or fix or I don't have to negotiate with those parts. I'm just still here and I'm available, and if they want to keep doing the work, that's fine. One of the things with this technique is sometimes it moves a lot, and it takes people time to integrate that. And I've had clients that come in for a session and I don't see them for 6 months, and I'm like, they're gone. That was just the reality of their life, or the human experience was too much to look at. And then they might come back and they're like, I want to train, and it's just like, I just don't know, right? And so I think, with time, I've got more accepting of the mystery of people's process and more comfortable in that. The way that we teach is we look at, like, minimum required dose. We look at how much someone can actually integrate around their experience. My own personal journey, I was thrust into staring down almost all of my behavior at the same time without the ability to very effectively do that, right? And it's one of the reasons, like, we have the school and the way that we train, and it's an intense process, because I don't want people to go through this in the way that I did. I want it to be different. So I think, like, we don't really know how things are going to land. We make ourselves as available as we can so that people can keep choosing the work.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will disengage for safety, and maybe we see them 5 or 10 years later, and that's also okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think many people are just afraid to lose the drive, because the drive was the thing that actually kept them safe and gives them the achievement and how people look at them, and they don't want to become this person who just walks barefoot in the forest in the end of the day. And sometimes there are some examples that of course are also pushed on social media. Oh, this guy was like super successful, now he's just meditating on the mountain basically.
Yeah.
So
I love that, right? There's fear there because, when our identity is wrapped up in the achiever, right?
Yeah.
But also we see its benefits. We don't want to let that go. Look, I've got a family to support, right? And, I enjoy a lot of things. I enjoy ice cream, I enjoy food. I enjoy the sauna. I want to still be able to afford those things. Mm-hmm. And if those things that are meaningful or important, if they came into question or I thought they might be threatened, for sure, I might be resistance to a practice. And so, it's about recognizing that when those parts of us that are dominating get softened back a little bit, it's still okay. Yeah. And we can still call on them when we want. I mean, I can overachieve. You put me on like a 3-week mission like to Europe, and I'll work super hard, high work rate, and I'll love it as well. And I'll come back and I'll need to rest. That's the new part that's there for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How would you paint the picture that is the opposite of this negative outcome? Like, okay, I'm an overachiever, I'm doing really well, but somehow I feel numb, but I'm not going to go in and live in Kopangan or Ubud and do nothing anymore. Yeah. But actually I integrate some of these parts and I bring them back into my life. I'm still going to do my business. How do you think like a positive example of that could look like?
Yeah, I love this, Janae. Look, I think what it comes down to is the acknowledgement that this is a marathon and not a sprint. And most people, when they're numb, they're on the edge of burnout. That's where they've stopped listening to all of the signals of the body. Yeah. They're not knowing when to eat, when to rest, when to exercise. They're just following usually a task list, and that will only go so far, right? When you're using top-down rigidity, you're going to come unstuck at some point. Yeah. So my offering to them is, it's better we do the listening now, and we get you more into the marathon mindset than you keep trying to sprint your way through this and burning out, right? Yeah. And then having to go through recovery. And usually I like to paint like simple investment terms, right? If you continue to invest steadily, as Warren Buffett will tell you, you'll do a lot better than if you go with the market and you try and make a lot of money when it's hot and stop losing money when it's cold, right? Steadiness and consistency. Ultimately, it's compounding interest. That's the law we're working with. When it comes to breathing mechanics, 23 to 26,000 times a day, compounding interest, right? If it's healthy consistently, you'll go a lot further than the dude that's trying to push hard but not doing very well in terms of efficiencies, right? There's going to be a cost at some point. You have to pay it back. Yeah. And I think this comes to maturation. Most founders, when they hit that first confronting burnout or big failure, they start to recognize what I'm doing isn't actually effective long term. Yeah. So I think I frame it up where I'm like, look, we got to get you out of this short-term mindset, and we got to start recognizing we're here for the long run. And oftentimes people are looking for the quick fix as well, right? So we have to say, hey, look, this is going to be a strategic lifestyle change. Yeah. And what it's going to do is allow your productivity to increase over time. And that's kind of like, as Pete labels it, right? That's the chocolate-covered broccoli right there.
Yeah, he likes that.
I love that. I love the analogy. Yeah.
Great. Another interesting thing is, you've probably also seen people having lots of breakthroughs. Like, wow, okay, be that in one session or after specific amount of sessions, just realizing, wow, okay, some things have really changed. I'm on a roll. I'm going into a bull run in my life. Everything's going great. And then, boom, something happens and they go back into old pattern. Maybe they repeat the relationship pattern. And then they feel, did I do all of this for nothing? Yeah. I thought I'm past this, and I kind of like almost frustrated even more because they invested so much time, effort, maybe money to work on themselves, and then they fall back. When you have somebody come to you like this, like, what is this all for? Yeah. What would you say to them?
Yeah, it's great. Like, they failed, right? Ultimately, that's what's happened. They've failed. They've been tested again, right? And the patterns, they run deep. Yeah. And they've been presented with, the man who appears to be more successful, or the woman who appears to be hotter, or the business deal that appears to be sweeter. But ultimately what they've done is they betrayed themselves again, right? And they've listened to their own fear or their own insecurity, and they've allowed that to guide them instead of staying true to what they know is actually aligned for them. And generally, when they start to uncover that and they take a greater sense of responsibility for their own patterns and their own behavior, we find that failure, as painful as it is, allows them to see that they're just continuing. It's the same pattern, but it's just in a different fluffy set, a different way of showing up in the world. Yeah, it's humbling, right?
Yeah.
And look, I've done it enough times, right? And it's like, oh, there I go again, And so I think in that moment, like I want to highlight the failure, but I also want to hold them in compassion. And then just say, like, we can begin again. Like, you get as many chances as you want, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just go again, right? Acknowledge the consequence on yourself and those around you, and make a commitment to not do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can speak for myself, but I assume you're also not excluded from that, and other people I know who have done a lot of breath work and personal work. Life is never without challenges for nobody.
Yeah.
And then some people would argue, like, well, now you have done all these years and you still struggle, so why should I even do that? And what's the difference, though, in the struggle that you have today versus if you just kept living the way you did back then?
Yeah, I love this. Yeah, I mean, like, openly and vulnerably for me, like the way my life looks now compared to how it was like 12 years ago is totally radically different, right? And it's taken me some time and distance from that version of me and those behaviors and patterns to actually be able to say this and claim this. And here, this is really alive for me. Like, I mean, I was a functioning alcoholic, and I got to the point of almost taking my own life. That's rock bottom, right? When we're actually confronted with the choice to stay here in this human experience, and we're thinking about choosing something else, right? It's also a very powerful moment where, ironically, I realized I was choosing to live.
Yeah.
It was very powerful, where I was like, I could choose to die, but I can also choose to live. It was one of the most powerful things that I got to, right? And after that, I mean, my relationship to alcohol shifted when I got to rock bottom. Like, that was where I had to really change. Yeah.
Can I very quickly,
Please,
because I had an interesting thought myself, and I think that many people, when they get into some addiction, first they don't really realize where's the point when I'm an addict for something. When I was struggling, for example, the last few months, and I stopped drinking alcohol 12 months ago, and I always did it for fun, but I noticed thinking, oh, wouldn't it be fun to get drunk again sometime?
Yeah.
And I'm like, where does that come from? And I noticed I actually didn't feel good. And for the first time in my life, I considered getting drunk because I wanted to feel better, not because I wanted to have fun. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm definitely not going to drink now for that reason, because I think that's how addiction starts. If you're not feeling well, and then you start to do that to cope, and then suddenly that feels good, and you do it more and more often. So my question is, with your alcohol problem, how did it happen, and when did you realize it was a problem, and how, so just try that people can maybe identify.
It's great, right? Like, I think, I think firstly, there were multiple behaviors that I was using to change my emotional state. Yeah, so I was in the restaurant business. Alcohol was part of the culture, caffeine as well, right? So alcohol and coffee, incredible combination, right? And yeah, I mean, we can have healthy relationships to both of those, but mine weren't. Couple that with adrenaline sports, which was skiing and mountain biking. I was living in the mountains in Canada. And so you got like a cocktail for a lot of different behaviors that appear very culturally and socially acceptable, but in fact, I'm self-medicating with them. That started, I mean, post when I was caught in my avalanche, right, which is about 12 years ago now, like, all of my coping strategies and mechanisms basically got taken away from me. And it was through that process that I had to really deeply inquire into. So
basically you were in the avalanche, you had to go to hospital, and in hospital you didn't have access to all the coping mechanisms that you usually had. Yeah,
like post-avalanche, I went through a recovery process, right? Yeah. And that basically changed my whole strategies, coping mechanisms, and worldview. And then beyond that, then because of that, mentally I was really challenged. I then left the restaurant business, and it was through actual space and time of like being with myself that I started to like look at my own behavior and feel myself more deeply. And it was terrible. Yeah. And so then that was when I started to medicate with alcohol. And I would describe myself as a functional alcoholic. Like 3 or 4 p.m. would roll around and I had to have a drink. And some days it was only one, right? But it's sticky. It's really sticky where you're just like, oh, I'm just having one drink, right? I'm justifying it in some way. But I'm using alcohol to change my state and to numb myself because I actually can't be with myself. And that's ultimately tragic. Like, it's tragic. So I had to really stare that down. What's terrible as well is that's socially validated. Yeah. And that's acceptable, and that's, oh, you're not an alcoholic, right? But I'm like, oh man, like, I'm going through a withdrawal if I don't have a drink at 4 p.m. Like that's a disaster, right? So yeah, I had to sort of stare that down, and then I had to create some changes. I wasn't very well equipped to navigate any of that, right? I wasn't working with someone that was able to support me. It was like I was clueless, right? And we're going back 12 years. I mean, this is pre like pop psychology on Instagram. Thankfully, like there wasn't misinformation or information. There was nothing, right? Yeah. So I was pretty blind, but I had a few resources to turn to, and this is where I started to study really the effects of trauma. I started to look at trauma, and then I started to get into the work of Peter Levine and Gabor Mate, and I started to explore both single event trauma and completion cycles through the lens of somatic experiencing, and then what I find is incredibly depressive work, which is Gabor Mate's work, right? It's a gift, but it's just like, it's heavy for me, right? And I like to have a little bit more hope, also like based on my own life experience. But yeah, I mean, it's worthwhile staring some of those things down. Yeah, and then I started to explore like the mechanisms and conditioning of the amygdala. Like, how is the amygdala conditioned to be able to be with intensity and emotion, and what's my range, and then how do I sit in discomfort, and then what is the feeling state I have, and then what's that cue, and then what does it trigger in a behavior. So now it's over 3 years with not a drop of alcohol, and I went through pulsations of having a drink once or twice a year. And that was fine, and it was very interesting. Usually it was a New Year's Eve or a social engagement, and that was fine. And it just kind of got to the point where I was like, Vern passed away, my teacher, my mentor, and I just decided to honor him. I would just be like, this is great. Like, I'll honor him by never drinking again. And it's been, over 3 years now. Yeah, it feels great.
Wow. Yeah, what a journey.
Yeah, it's been a journey. Yeah, and from a space of real despair, like real suffering and difficulty. So coming back to so the initial inquiry is like, when I'm working with people who are like, well, you still struggle, I'm like, yeah, like barely. And in comparison to that, I mean, it's non-existent, One thing that does come up, Renee, for me is like, I had a throat infection like 4 or 5 weeks ago. We're in the tropics, and things are pretty gnarly here. Like, you get a cut on your leg. If you don't tend to it before you know it, like, like it's half your legs, like, like bright red and inflamed, right? So anyway, it was 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was at end of a bit of a work cycle. I had a really important training for 2 weeks with some Australians that I really cared a lot about. And I was getting to the end of it. Anyway, I got hit with this throat infection. And what was difficult was to hold the part of me that was judging myself so much around, I know all of this about the nervous system. I have these great protocols for health, and I still get sick, Yeah. And I was just like...
I noticed that too.
Right?
I judge myself when I get sick or when I feel emotionally drained by something.
Yeah. And then in that moment, it's like, usually Georgie, my partner, she'll just be like, yeah, still human. Yeah, it's just, you just get sick. And then also it can be like, oh, let's find the deeper lesson or meaning. And she's like, no, you just got a throat infection, like it's Bali, you just drank from a dirty cup or like whatever it was, right? So it's really nice to be surrounded by people that reflect back to us. Yeah, just because you've done all of this deep physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual work, guess what? You're still human. And we get humbled.
If you're open to sharing, what was the last thing in the last couple of years that emotionally really humbled you, and how did you deal with it, and where do you go to get support?
That's a great question. Yeah, the most humbling recent event was in February this year. My dad came to visit, and I hadn't seen him in about 30 years. Oh, wow. So a little over 30 years. So from the time that my parents separated, my dad attempted to stay in good contact with me, and it was just an impossible situation. He couldn't get access, basically, and plans were changed, and it was just made difficult for him. And so my dad made the decision to disengage from the difficulty of attempting to see me, And
what age was that?
yeah, I would have been probably around 10.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been sporadic since my parents separated when I was around 3.5, so I was really young, right? And and so I saw him, intermittent contact, which was probably quite difficult for me during that time for 6 years, and then at 10 it kind of stopped entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see both sides of this from my mum and my dad. I see both of their, over the years I've finally managed to integrate both of their stories to the reality of what was really there, right? So anyway, I've been, when I became a father, around 7 years ago, the lead up to that, I got in touch with my dad via email, and we started to cultivate a relationship again, just gently over time.
Mm-hmm.
And then, when Onyx was born, just kind of celebrating becoming a father. And then through that process, I started to understand what he'd gone through.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to have a lot more compassion and understanding for him. And then as we connected more and I shared more about my own experience of being a father, my own difficulties in parenting and then co-parenting and now parallel parenting with Onyx's mum and the challenge I was facing there, I understood him so clearly and what he'd gone through. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I made a decision to do things differently. So when my dad when I was around 10, decided for my own benefit to no longer keep trying to see me and having the disappointment and challenge and difficulty, I understood why he'd done that. I had total understanding of that. And so he came here to Bali to visit in February. So about 6 months ago he came to visit, less than 4 months ago he came to visit. Mm-hmm. And we reconnected. He stayed here for 3 weeks and he was there with Onyx. It was confronting. It was really confronting because really what I asked him, what's been your, out of all of your, he has 3 other kids from his second marriage. Mm-hmm. Out of all of your times of parenting, what's been your most favorite time of being a dad? Because I love being a father. Mm-hmm. I take Onyx to the beach and my dad's response to this was now. I like it now the most. Now his kids are all grown up. And so he loves being a father with adults, right? Mm-hmm. And he's a good father to adults. Yeah. But the reality is, when I saw him with Onyx, his ability to be with children, it's just not his strength. Yeah. So that was emotionally very confronting. And then at the same time, I got complete on a deeper piece, which was it was actually fine as it was. Yeah. With my dad not being present in my life for that amount of time and us reconnecting now, that's also been fine. Yeah. So it was this blinding kind of realization that it didn't need to be different and I'm still okay. And now, we communicate effectively and well. Yeah. One of the most meaningful experiences was giving him a session. Yeah. So when I was born 44 years ago, my dad put out his right hip and his pelvis misaligned and he's been having a hip difficulty for 44 years. Yeah. And I had the experience of holding him and adjusting his breath and his pelvis. And I got his hip realigned in the session, and he had better functionality of his hip and pelvis since that moment. Mm. There was something that was just this bizarre, complete circle around my ability to support and hold him, in a very different way. It was like a reciprocity for all of the ways that he'd supported me. So that was a very big and complete moment, and very emotional for him as well.
I bet.
Yeah, and then at the same time with that visit, there was a desire for me to be supported and held and seen by him in a way that wasn't fully met. Yeah, and there was some disappointment there for me, and I had to just kind of manage my own expectations around that, and just acknowledge this is just how he is, and the depth of work that we do, the way that we can hold each other, the way that we can relate, it's outlying and unique, and I have to honor that.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. Now you just mentioned something, what you did with his hip, just realigning his hip. And I've seen you do a few freaky things in our training where people had some serious issues in their body. Yeah. Not to speak about emotional growth. Yeah. Can you share one story of where you were able to help somebody with something truly significant that actually made you emotional, that where you maybe got a message after and said, wow, this really, this really changed my life.
Yeah, thank you. I think, the one that pops up is just, I've worked a lot with women with how breath moves into the pelvis. And yeah, so, physically how the diaphragm is moving down into the organ space and the quality of the abdominal wall.
Yeah.
And biomechanically, the force with which the diaphragm moves down creates a change in the internalized pressure that pressurizes the ovaries and the womb.
Yeah.
And the ability to tolerate the diaphragm moving down and pressurizing that, is variable. With deep touch work and breath into that space, we can change the ability for the visceral glide of the organs, of the womb and of the ovaries. And oftentimes dysfunction in that space for women, be it postpartum or because of cysts or because of the tensioning in the pelvic floor or abdominal wall, or the blowing out of the abdominal wall, and then bloating and discomfort, right, leads to a variety of different conditions in that space. There's been quite a few cases where, women have gone for scans where they've had, polyps or they've had cysts, and they're no longer there. And those have been some of the most significant touching moments because there's something biomechanical that we have changed that's tangible and measurable that's shifted. Yeah. And you and I know that this work is powerful and it is effective. Yeah. And I want to put more data to that. That's why we have our research projects and I do the work that I do, right? But when I have what is anecdotal experience of that, and then some women who've been unable to conceive and then they've had a kid, and I get a picture of the child, and they've tried IVF and nothing's worked. But that whole area, once breath is moving through the pelvis, it's now a fertile space. Yeah, that's been so meaningful. Yeah, and with that, I'm not satisfied either because there's so many people I've worked with where I want to create change and it doesn't happen, and so these anecdotal wonderful stories, they keep us motivated, and we feel heroic in those moments. That part of me feels great, right? And I still am unsatisfied with the modality. It still spurs me to research more, to train more, to get more efficient, effective, and understand more of the mechanisms.
Yeah. Is it that particular thing? I mean, that's amazing. But then I remember you sharing with us that you were really excited when Pete and I came in the winter and you could share some of the new things that you've learned because we get it. Yeah. And, because you're really doing so profound work, but kind of nobody gets it. And it's I'm sure there's a part of you I want people to understand what I'm doing here. Yeah. Right? Yeah,
it's so good, Renee. I love it when team come over, right, and hang out, or they drop back in and they visit again. Our frontier here in Bali is moving every 6 months. Every 6 months, there's significant milestones that we've crossed again. There's more understanding. The team here, we're in it. We're in it every day, and we're in it deep, and we're sharing and we're learning. We're working on each other. We're bringing in other practitioners. We're integrating new knowledge and experience. We're changing the way that we're operating. And so FBR is an evolution. When I think about the technique where it is now to where it was 6 years ago, right, when we started in Bali, or 8-9 years ago when I was studying in Canada with this style of teaching and training, it's a totally different modality now. The depth, the concentration, integration of parts work, and some of the other psychological things has evolved so much. So when team rock in from Europe or North America, and they come back and they visit and they get the upgrade, I'm stoked because it lands so clearly that they understand it. The other part that's here is I want more people to understand the power and nature of this work. And I'm also quite careful as to how I share myself. Through experiences, right? Also because there's a lot I don't like about Instagram wellness culture, a lot of the different movements that are alive right now, right? And I want the methodology to be grounded in data. And so right now, we're just testing our app right now, right? And as you've been on this journey with us, but for the listeners, right, we're building our app that enables us to test, very, very effectively test rhythms of breath on a massive scale and gather that data. So we're able to test the nuances of basically 2,000 breaths during the journey. And then we're able to extrapolate a lot of the data from that. And we're able to track that over time. And that's no longer anecdotal, right? That's no longer someone had a big experience. It's someone had a big experience and their heart rate changed, heart rate variability changed, quality and tone of their diaphragm changed, the way that they can breathe changed. And then we're adding on more metrics. So then when we start to do psychological analysis and or journaling with behavior, we start to see all of that as well. That's interesting, right? That's where I want to go.
Yeah, it's totally, because as you say, we know what it can do. I experienced it on my own body, my clients, and everybody who did the training with me and you. But I think the world kind of needs this kind of data in order to build trust to go there, because ultimately, no matter what your story is, like, breath is good for everybody.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, it's the common denominator, right? And it's the foundation of all of the other body systems. 23 to 26,000 breaths a day. If we've got dysfunctional breathing, the other systems have to compensate. Metabolic health gets compromised, mitochondrial health gets compromised, digestion gets compromised, kidney and adrenal function is compromised. So breath is important, period, right? That's unequivocal, right? And then you kind of get to this idea of like, well, how important is it? And it's just like, well, it's kind of like the foundation. It's there with sleep, right? So breath and sleep, if either of those systems aren't performing well, everything else gets compromised, right? Yeah, and so, I want, like, part of me is like, isn't it really obvious? Like, we just got to start with breathing? Like, what? Did you check their breathing? And it's just like, no, we're looking at all of these other things. And I'm like, well, their rib cage isn't flaring. So how can they find relaxation, right? So...
But it's like people just have no clue. They just, like, most people literally think, well, I'm breathing.
Yeah, and it's fine. Yeah, and so,
that's the end of it.
Look, and I think that in the next 2 years, like, our organization is going to raise awareness. Yeah. And it will do it as we're training more practitioners. For me, the goal is simultaneously to raise awareness with access to the work, right? And our app will help us do that for a variety of different reasons. But it will also help build breath programs for people that are very specific for their nervous system. Yeah. So you wake up in the morning, you put your device on, and it will scan you very effectively, and it will then tell you what you need to do specifically for you for that day to build your resilience and capacity.
That's super interesting.
And this is data-driven breathwork, which is the frontier that we're going to start exploring very deeply very soon. We've just spent basically 3 years in developmental stage here, and we're getting close to start to explore it with our team now. Yeah.
I just want to go somewhere quickly, and I know you have answered this before, but it's important because I say to people, like, I just got lucky that I fell basically into your school, because I didn't know much about breathwork, and I could just as well had seen an ad online for a 2-week online breathwork practitioner training or thinking, okay, well, that's it, that's great, I do that. I don't know the difference because I don't know anything about breathwork.
Sure.
But now there's so much of this stuff going on, and knowing, like, being here for 5 months, doing almost the whole training on the human body rather than reading a book, and just knowing the difference, and also having so many people come in Berlin and said, oh, I didn't enjoy, did breathwork before, it was a room full of 50 people, and I didn't have any support. Like, as I said, you answered this before, but just like a quick recap, why are we working in small groups or one-on-one and not like this?
Yeah, FBR is different, right? FBR, the way that we work is different. A couple of the reasons it's different. We only work in person. The reason we only work in person is because we believe in touch. We believe in touch work for co-regulation. We believe in touch work to help move the breath in the body. Sometimes when big reflexes or movements start to move through someone, they really need physical support. Mm-hmm. That's like one fundamental thing that I believe in. And then, when things start to move or run in a client, we need to have enough quality support and care. 1 to 50, like one facilitated of 50 breathers doesn't allow for that. And so we have this mandate of 1 to 4 or 1 to 5, depending on the team. So small groups, maximum group of 20. It allows the person that's taking charge of the group to scan 20 nervous systems and have a good understanding of where people are at. Here in Bali, we're 1 to 16. When I run a workshop, it's usually 1 to 2. So it's 2 breathers to 1 facilitator. I love that ratio. It allows lots of hands-on support. In terms of the model financially, it sucks, right? I mean,
that's what I also say as well. Like, of course, it's much harder to scale it. But it's the right thing to do.
It doesn't scale, right? I mean, that work, what we're doing there here in Bali, there's we don't make profit from our group workshops. Like, it's a break-even situation, right? And oftentimes there's been months where I've had to cross subsidy from other things that we do, and that's fine. That's the nature of it. The one-on-one work is profitable, and it's very powerful and deep, and that's the way that we choose to sort of structure the business. So yeah, I think this idea of scaling, we have to recognize that there's certain things that don't scale well, and that's okay. Let's be content with that, right?
Yeah.
And let's also, let's celebrate that, right? And then I think, there's other ways that I do want to scale, like a morning practice that's delivered through a device that's very accurate does scale well, right? And provides a lot more efficacy and safety. So I think, we've got to recognize, like, for me, this is relational work and it needs to be done in right relationship. That means in person, in a small group, and ideally over a longer arc of time.
Yeah.
And it just builds trust. Like, people get to know people, they get to know, like, their quirks, their weirdness, their idiosyncrasies. Like, my team gets to know me really well. I like that way of working. Yeah. It's important for me. Yeah. And there's huge drawbacks, right? It means, you got to be here. Right, it's not accessible. That one of the downsides, like, the work doesn't scale when it's not accessible, and then people are like, oh, well, you need to share this with more people, and I'm like, nah, I'm actually pretty good with it. Beyond that, I also really love the work that you and Pete are doing in Europe, the work that Dan and Sarah are doing in Australia, and so how it does scale is through good and trusted allies that get it. Like, that's the way it scales, right? And also for me, that feels really good. I'm like, I'm good.
I just wanted to ask you, how does that feel, like, actually knowing that you started something, knowing that every single person who brings that out in the world, like, I have worked with a couple hundred people now and, gave many of them really positive experience, and it all started with you. Like, do you sometimes realize that this is...
No, absolutely no realization. I have got, like, honestly, bro, it hasn't in any way landed at all, right? What I'm starting to recognize is FBR in the next year to 2 years is going to become a movement that's really well respected in some of the foundational beliefs that I've lived by. And one of the one is integrity, right? I've just chosen to work in a certain way. Yeah. And when other people have said, well, you've got to work online or package up your offering and put it online or scale in this way. And I've been so,
it's important to say, with your reputation, your knowledge, and your ability to speak about these things, you could have put yourself online and made millions with courses and group things.
For sure.
And it wasn't ever even a thought that you entertained.
Yeah, I mean, like, I've gone down that route. I had lunch with, like, a really profound and highly skilled online coach, right? And looked at his business model, and he showed me exactly the pathway. And I realized, like, I couldn't do it because it would have compromised some of my, like, beliefs and values around the work. So I entertained it for one lunch, and then I was like, I'm complete, that's done. Like, I won't do that. Yeah, it hasn't landed. Like, the impact hasn't landed for me. I think, this season for me is a slowing down and a reflection on what we've built and created. And that does feel really good. I definitely could have scaled and be in a totally different position. It wouldn't have been worth it. One other thing that people say to me now is like, well, you're the founder and creator of this, and so it's easy for you. Yeah. But
to make a living off
it's easy for you now because, you have the reputation. But a decade ago, I still worked in this way, and I didn't. No one knew, right? And so I want to make it clear. It wasn't that, like, because of the reputation I can have integrity. It was because of the integrity that I have the reputation. Yeah. I chose to work in this way from the start. Yeah. And I see my team, when my team does that, when they're like, I'm upholding these beliefs and values, and they stick to it and they believe in it, it doesn't take long before they're full. Like, that's just the reality of it.
One thing I touched on before, but we then kind of got carried away. I would love to hear, just like, I think it's fun for people maybe to, because through knowing you, through studying breathwork, I started to try some other weird things, like this body work with Ash, where he really digs deep into my organs and stuff, and I feel different after. Yeah. Or be that some somatic body work or whatever. Like, what is some of the weird stuff you have done that you really loved and just had experiences where you said, wow, that was cool. That is not breathwork.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. Thank you, bro. I mean, Ash Parkhouse, just to name him, like, one of the most incredible, precise and attuned body workers I've ever experienced. Eddie Ulm is another guy, Science of Touch. So Eddie has this incredible way of working with tendons and reflexes in the nervous system as well. And those two guys as body workers have been profound. Here in Bali, there's been so many body workers where I've been lying face down on the table, watching or feeling what they're doing and tracking and just kind of being like, oh, I'm going to take that. That's useful and profound, right? Yeah, and then one of the most beautiful things has been these moments in the final exam with the team. Yeah, when I've trained someone and they've come through the process, and then I like to invite them to give me a session at the end of the training.
Mm-hmm.
I've been so beautifully supported and humbled, cracked open so many times, and got into these deeper layers of myself, being held by individuals that I've trained myself, and that they've brought in like the wealth of their own lived experience and their own stories and their own childhood tenderness and their own capacity that's outside of anything that I've ever lived or experienced, and they've held me with and through that. I think those are still like some of the top experiences. Like I recently had an incredible poem read to me just post peak by one of the guys I just trained recently. And like this.
And he dropped the poem in the session.
He wrote the poem and dropped the poem like just past the peak with a super evocative piece of music. And of course, I'm like just lying there, like heart like so wide open, just bawling. It was actually all around basically the piece that like, it was all around how like you've carried this for long enough, and now I'm gonna cry, and now we carry it for you. And it touched me so deeply that these people who have shown up with conviction and like this real care for the practice now carry it. And it's just so relieving that this modality that I believe in so much is carried by the likes of you and Pete, Dan and Sarah, and so many others around the world that are sharing it. And so, it starts to land now. Yeah. And as it's starting to land and I see it spreading, I see, we got circles in Singapore, and there's great stuff going on in Oz right now, in Europe and Portugal with Linda. And I'm just like, wow, like, I can work less now. Like, it's relieving. Yeah, feels really good.
Whew. Thank you. Yeah, I was just imagining myself in what you could have felt in that moment. Like, because if somebody hasn't tried the breathwork session and never went that deep, it's very hard to understand what it feels like. But it's a very truthful moment of like just rawness, and the emotion and the clarity in that emotion is so deep that it's hard to explain. But you laying there and receiving that from somebody that you have taught, and then knowing they're going to bring it out in the world, giving people what you just feel right now, I can imagine how beautiful that was.
Yeah, and it's wonderful to think that you're going through this same experience right now with the first training that you did last year in Berlin. Yeah, your practitioners are now supporting you on this second training, right? Yeah. They're coming through in this next wave. They're now watching. We've got 8 people who are in the second training, and then they'll come back and circle around, and they'll start to inspire people for the third training, which will happen, And so, it starts to become this movement now where, it's swelling. It's getting some momentum. Yeah. And you're a part of witnessing that also now as well, and it's really meaningful.
It's totally. And I mean, our really line has been going pretty well, growing. Our retreats are full, and we literally still have we have never dropped any ads really and stuff. We've done a few podcasts, but it's mostly just word of mouth, because people usually after a couple of sessions, they have the desire to share it with the people they care about the most.
Yes.
Because they want to experience for them, or they want them to experience what they experience. Yes. Because it's just profound and it's real. And
this is the quality of the work, right? And if people are doing good quality work and they're really attuned and supporting, so many of the wounds that happened in a relationship get healed in that relationship. They get healed through co-regulation, through the containers, through the men sharing, through the men seeing each other and supporting each other, through the humility. And it's just natural as humans. We just want that for other people. And I think it's kind of like, if we stick true to that, what happens is it becomes self-perpetuating. People share it with other people, and it starts to grow. And like you said, there's no ad spend. Like, that's just where it gets to. Yeah. And that becomes a very sustainable way of living, of doing business, but of living as well. It's very sustainable. Yeah. Yeah. Relieving again, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where, we talked a little bit about it now, but just to wrap it up, where do you see your next the focus in the next 12 to 24 months, and where would you like FBR to be? And do you see yourself to be talking about this on, some bigger podcasts in the future? Is that something you'd like to do?
Yeah, I love this. Thanks, Renee. I think I love these intimate podcasts with people that know me. This is really important. If I'm going to be on a bigger podcast in the future, I have to have cultivated that quality of relationship with the person that's interviewing me. Yeah. I think I've only done 1 or maybe 2 podcasts with someone I haven't worked with ever. And I'm like, I don't do it. Like, unless someone's worked with me and they get what I do, I don't go on a podcast with them. The quality of the question there's not the level of understanding.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. I would love to be on a big podcast in the future.
Just do a session with them before the podcast.
That's it, right? I have to do 1 or multiple sessions with them, right? So they really get what I do, like over an arc. So that's definitely possible. Kind of like, fame's a double-edged sword, right? I've been in situations where it's been very negative for me and people around me to have notoriety or fame, right? So I'm hesitant around it. I like being in these environments and sharing through your audience. I trust the people who will listen, that they'll understand and get it, right? So that feels good. So I have a level of discretion around who I choose to be interviewed by, which feels really good. When it comes to what I'm seeing for FBR and the work, right? I really want now, my focus is the people that we're training, right, that are doing good work. I want them to thrive. Yeah, I'm in a really wonderful position right now with myself, with where I'm at in terms of work-life balance and finances. And I want more of the team to experience that. So that's kind of my primary motivator. And I want more good work to be shared with people. There is a moment where I'm willing to be of service in terms of exposing myself to the possibility of criticism to increase awareness for what we're doing. And what I want is that our schools are really well set up with good teachers to be able to receive the influx of what we will receive, right? So that's one thing. So I want to raise awareness as we have the possibility of continuing to train more and more practitioners. Also that we've got a good amount of one-on-one practitioners in the world to give people support. It's kind of like this technique can solve so much suffering, and then I say, but you can't access it. Like, that's not helping anyone, So what I want to say is, look, this technique is totally going to change the course of humanity. This is what I fundamentally believe. And I might be wrong, but let's see, right? And then what I want is access. So access to good quality practitioners. And then what that means is access also using our app, right? That we can scale breath work in a very safe and sustainable way so that other people can access it at home. And then, the bigger piece that we start to contemplate is, how does the school grow beyond my very limited abilities, right? And how do we invite in more people that are better at delivering more offerings, to more people? What does growth look like for the school? Beyond me.
I love that you think that way, because again, for me, it's like super important. That's like a desire I feel in myself when I talk to people. I want, without wanting to belittle anybody else, but I want people to understand that what you teach us and teach people is simply different than the average breathing circle that people go to. And I hope like that was a good glimpse of it today, the way you speak about all the different angles. And I also love that you just are so conscious about trying to keep building that in a way that keeps the quality alive, which is super difficult, because to become a really good teacher in teaching what you do takes time and takes effort and determination, and must not be easy to balance the desire to bring it to more people and keep the quality. But
this is it, right? This is the how to get more people having access to this work whilst maintaining the quality and the same like feel of it, like the same like essence of the work. And it's almost like we can kind of like sense or feel when it's alive in someone, when they get it, like, and it's practice. You got to put the reps in, both like in the practice ourselves and then with our clients. Like there's no shortcut here. And that's where, you just got to keep putting the hours in and you get good at it. Like that's what happens, obviously, with supervision as well, right? And then, I am ready now to start getting a little bit more clear around why FBR is different, like why and how. And as you said, it's not about belittling other people. It's just about saying what we're doing is significantly different. It's about the amount of hands-on touch work. It's about the amount of precision. It's about the amount of understanding we have about mechanics of breathing and muscle groups and all of the different ways that we're exploring the breath. And then next year it will be like, well, it's about the amount of data we gather. Like we gather so much data, and then that's analyzed by an algorithm that we've developed that basically looks at huge amounts of breath rhythms and shows where people have deficiencies, provides that information to our practitioner, and our practitioners are they're better informed. And they're better informed because of the data and the algorithm. So we'll get there as well. That will be a point of difference where people will start taking notice. Because we've got the data set.
Yeah, and it's not like, I just want to add, like, it's not just me having this opinion. I mean, I'm sure there has been many more people come through to you, but even my limited experience, I know 2 or 3 people now who had previously done a breathwork training and then felt like, okay, something's missing. And then they came and did the training with Breathwork Bali as well and said, okay, it's just a whole different sphere we're operating in here.
Yeah, it's great. I think that, that's consistently what happens. A couple of things happen. One is sometimes people show up and they're immediately humbled because they know there's something different. Yeah. And then, kind of day one, they go through this process of being like, oh, I haven't been taught effectively. And then there's sometimes some frustration and resentment from the previous school. Yeah. And then they acknowledge that they didn't receive value. And that can be like, there's a grief process in those first few days of acknowledging it. And sometimes, people move through that fast and it's just like, it's okay, I'm here and I'm here to learn like this new layer or depth, right? Yeah, and I think we are doing such a radical assessment of breathing mechanics and such an understanding of physiology. It is just totally different than most schools out there. Yeah. And I mean, we'll continue to pursue that. And then we'll add data to it. And then we'll add a lot more structure and methodology as well to what we're doing over time because of the data that we'll gather. Yeah,
epic. Any last words you would like to say? Anything you would like to share?
Yeah, I think, really touched to be here with you again, bro. It's really meaningful. You keep coming back.
2.5 years later.
Yeah, you're still here, right? There's a persistence and a dedication that you have to the work that means a lot to me. There's also, deeper layers of relief around you and Pete carrying the work and knowing that, you're sharing it and so many men have experienced it as well, so many leaders and founders. I believe that will impact, thousands of people as well. And that's really meaningful. And along with that, the consistent desire for your own personal growth that I keep seeing, right? Yeah, I think you're going to be joining Circle tonight. Yes. It's just like... Yeah, it's Wednesday night. I'm teaching.
Wednesday night, Edward is leading the Breathwork Circle and I'm going in to breathe myself. Yeah, can't wait. I'm bringing 3 friends as well.
It's incredible, right? You're bringing in 3 people who are going to get to experience this. Tonight, we've got someone who's training as well for the Circle Lead process who's visiting from Australia. Yeah. We've got a really great mixed team that's going to be in the room tonight. Just the fact that you're showing up, I appreciate the opportunity to share this here, to be interviewed in this way. That's really meaningful. Yeah. But also, you share the work, you show up in your practice. Yeah, it's just, you're living it and that means a lot. Yeah,
thank you so much. Yeah. It was really fun and really,
so welcome,
was a bit nervous, but I think we got through pretty well.
It's just us talking in a room again. Nice. Good. Thanks so much, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Thank you for listening and looking forward to see you in the next episode of the Line Founder podcast. If you want to join our retreats or interested in some of one-on-one work in Berlin, I'll be back there in September, October, November, and a little bit of December. And feel free to reach out. We're looking forward to hear from you.